Cover 3 Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcast on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, aka the Cover 3 Tailgate, or our friend, the Real Coconut, longtime member of the tailgate at 8:54 a.m. Eastern time. He jumped in the tailgate, pulled up to his spot, and offered something that made me feel good, Tom. He said, "Morning, fellas. Found myself really craving college football this weekend. Had a lot of busy work to do, so I threw on some instant reactions and a pun for the reviews from last season. Thanks for keeping that playlist up." He added, "Really interesting to hear some takes that turned out to be quite prescient, like Tom saying he didn't trust Notre Dame to lose a game that they shouldn't right after they beat Texas A&M. Others, not so much." He said he may turn this into a busy work off-season routine and compile some of my favorite moments. The Real Coconut, we would love for you to do that, because that's that is sort of the cool thing about the instant reactions, the upon further reviews. Like, we are giving you everything as we know, and then immediately 1 week later, it can all get thrown out the window. So yeah, we love that right there. Are you going to check any tape? You going to grind any recaps from last year? See what we can do to get better?
Oh yeah, I do that anyway, all the time. I'm always grinding the tape, always trying to find a way to get better. Just improve 1% every single day, and then just get better and better, and then make the show great. And I do, having read those or saw those comments now, I am kind of interested to go back and listen to some of the dumb things we all said, especially on instant reaction shows, because instant reaction shows are a great time for us to say stupid things, because we haven't really had time to actually digest any of what we just saw.
Yeah. And because of the nature of the instant reaction, we're gonna go harder on that. Like, they can't win with that quarterback.
No, he sucks.
Yeah, he can't play. Our one of our favorite things to guys, I don't know if he can play. Like, he's not a Division I FBS power conference college football player who's accomplished quite a bit to get there.
Not even sure he could handle the equipment. I don't know. Just probably kick him off the team.
Yeah, Real Coconut still with us right now. A couple hours later, says some genuinely hilarious moments in hindsight. So yeah, maybe we will go through, and Real Coconut, if you want to send it to us, maybe we'll clip some together and put together a best of before we get rolling with a new set of over-the-top reactions, the instant reactions for the season ahead.
This is a great comment from Garrett, though. Danny has never said anything stupid on an instant reaction show. It's true. That's an excellent point. Yeah. Danny has never said anything stupid on a reaction show. He's never said anything at all. He's in bed by then. Just an old ass man.
Danny right now stranded with weather-related flight delays. We miss him. Bud's got a busy week that includes some travel out to Elite 11 out at the end of the week. We'll be checking in with them as we can. Thanks to Danny and Bud. I saw someone point out that the SWAT team came and got me in the middle of Thursday's episode. Yeah, we had a little bit of a family issue, so thanks to Bud and Danny for being able to finish the job, bring that home on our mailbag episode.
Just an entire crime family, the Pattersons.
Yeah, it's what's the difference between me and Scotty Scheffler? Scotty Scheffler has multiple major championships. Other than that, we're exactly the same. All right. As you saw here in the headline of the episode, in the thumbnail, we are going to be going into our Heisman Trophy preview, working our way through the candidates, trying to give you our thoughts on where the race stands now, what needs to happen for some of the favorites to be able to get there, and of course, everyone's favorite, long shots that might be worth just a little nibble. But first, I want to start with something, Tom, that you actually sent over to me, and I love Pete Thamel. Pete's a great guy, but he's sneaky. Okay. I'm gonna call him Sneaky Pete today. Okay. Cause he's going to throw you off. He's going to drip out some some notable, Vince Morrow movement. He's going to give you the insight that you need into the Claudia Wilkin decision. I mean, he might even lull you to sleep, trying to think about movement and some FBS, FCS movement. But then he's going to drop in everyone's favorite. Okay, it's conference realignment. Ho ho! We got conference realignment, and Sticky Pete. I mean, he keeps it real. He is not just a power conference guy. He's not power conference Pete. No. He goes through all the different levels, and what he was able to offer up over on ESPN.com is a little bit of realignment buzz with some potential dominoes. So a couple of levels to this, Tom. We've got the Pac-12, which I think is going to be a nice refresher. We've got what might come next. And then, of course, at the American Athletic Conference in the Sun Belt. But I wanted to start with just a general refresher because some comments in the tailgate have offered, what exactly is the deal with the Pac-12? Because some of those movements happened during the football season, made it very tough to kind of log what's going on. So the Pac-12 is going to have one more year as the Pac-2, Oregon State, Washington State for the 2025 season. But then in 2026, we will see Fresno State, San Diego State, Boise State, Colorado State, and Utah State and Gonzaga join the Pac-12. Now that is, for my money, a pretty good collection. You just had those two. You looked at the landscape. Bringing in some of those powers from the Mountain West does beef up the Pac-12 strength in a major way. But they are not yet at 8 football playing members, which is the threshold they need for 2026. They have failed to add UNLV. They have failed to add Air Force, who both opted to stay in the Mountain West. Tulane did not bite on initial conversations. And Memphis, looking at the Pac-12's finances and what it would cost to get there versus what they are making in the American Athletic Conference, said no, which brings us to the Bobcats and to some stealth tweets and beavers on the San Marcos. And Tom, does Texas State to the Pac-12 get we've got a lot of friends with some Texas State connections. Does that get the motor going a little bit?
I think it'd be a good ad for the league as it's being currently constructed in that, they desperately need an 8th school. So, like, if you're Texas State, you certainly have some leverage on that because the Pac-12 needs you. But I also think that if you just look at the program in general, the kind of schools that the Pac-12 can go after and realistically get, considering like Tulane and Memphis have already kind of said no, like it's makes the most sense because it's in Texas, so that gets you into the state, gives you access to some, just being able to play there. It helps with recruiting. It is a large school. I mean, it's got 40,000 students. It's getting larger, and they care about football. So, like, for all that kind of stuff, it makes plenty of sense for the Pac-12 to bring them in. I don't know. I mean, from a travel perspective, if you're Texas State, obviously, I think the Sun Belt is better. But it's not like everybody in the Sun Belt is that close to Texas State either. Like the east side of that conference is still pretty much a trek to the other coast of the country. So I don't know if it changes it too much. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Texas State. And I think it would give it a pretty good, I think it would be a solid G5 conference at that point. Like you look at the schools that they have added from the Mountain West, they've taken some of the better schools from that league. You get Texas State, who has the potential to be a pretty damn decent G5 team in the long run. I think you've got yourself a fun little league, depending on how the college football playoff format in the future shakes out as far as bids for group of 5 spots.
When you're thinking about what this Pac-12 would look like, and because this came to mind for me, let's put the Texas State piece of this aside, and I'll have a little bit more on the timeline of that. When you have Washington State, Oregon State, but Boise, Fresno, San Diego State, Colorado State, Utah State, now under the leadership of Bronco Mendenhall. I mean, if I gave you Pac-12 or AAC.
I'm still leaning AAC because
it's top.
Yeah, because of like the Memphis and the Tulanes. I think that they're stronger. I think especially like Memphis, because Memphis has the backing of FedEx. You know what I mean? So it's like that gives them an edge over, I think, of a lot of programs. And I think there's a reason Memphis is kind of holding out for a Power 4 spot. Like Memphis, I think if it moves to a new conference, probably wants it to be the ACC or the Big 12. It doesn't want it to be the Pac-12 or, any of the other G5 leagues. So I think there's a reason for that. So I do think the American is better at the top, but I think once you get past that top level of the American, I would argue that the new Pac-12 would be stronger at the bottom because there's a lot of teams at the bottom of the American that are just kind of, okay, cool, you're there. Like your Conference USA teams for the most part.
Well, and some unique, hard to compare ones like Army Navy, which are now full football members of the American Athletic Conference, and you're always going to expect them to go out there, field competitive teams, especially under their current leadership at both of those academies. And so I guess I lean with you, but man, that's asking the top of the conference to carry a lot of weight right there, just because those other programs that the Pac-12 has added are the ones that we've looked at for 9-win seasons, 10-win seasons, and they change over coaches, and we still see those schools competing for conference titles, competing for big time bowl games. So Texas State, I don't think changes that math that much, but I at least thought that was interesting in terms of trying to reassess what the Pac-12 is going to look like, because it's next year we are going to see the Pac-12 look very different.
I think the best way to look at the Pac-12 as it'll be constructed in the future, if it adds Texas State, is like who's the duck? Like who's the program you look at and be like, oh, that's going to be that's going to be the team in last place every year. There isn't one. I think it'd be a pretty fun league. Whereas when you look at the American, you can find some teams in there be like, yeah, they're going to be at the bottom.
Yeah. I hate to say this. Is it Oregon State?
It might be.
Yeah. The team that actually is there, the team that is holding the open bar media days. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. A long way to go on that. For the timeline, as I mentioned, on July 1, Texas State buyout from the Sun Belt Conference jumps from $5 million to $10 million. Texas State, according to reporting from Pete Thamel and others, has turned down a Mountain West invitation already. So lots of buzz there that Texas State is kind of the next piece that we could see, at least in terms of these conference realignment dominoes.
The other interesting part of this story to me, going back to Memphis, was Pete wrote that there was consideration. Like Memphis did not want to join the Pac-12 as a full member, but there's consideration that they would join football only.
I know.
And then move the rest of their sports programs to the Big East, which would mean basketball, everything else. So that way it helps with travel for all your lower revenue sports and basketball, and then you could do the traveling for football. I think that could be interesting. I just wonder if you're Memphis, and maybe we should get Gary on here because he'll know better than us. Is football or basketball more important to you?
I think it's basketball.
So do I. But
we're talking about the Metro, like their old days of like Metro Conference, Conference USA. Like that's a basketball, a basketball forward history, in my opinion.
So if I'm a Memphis fan, my concern with this idea is that if I go to the Big East for basketball, but I'm in the Pac-12 for football with revenue sharing, I'm the only Big East basketball team who's putting money into a football program. And I know you've got FedEx backing, and maybe that helps, alleviate some of those issues. But while Villanova's throwing, 15 million at its basketball team, I'm throwing 16 million at my football team, and I've only got 4 million for basketball. I feel like that could put them at a disadvantage in that league.
I was thinking, so Big East, I believe, subject to change or subject to me being wrong, I believe the Big East is like a $7 million media rights payout to the schools, and so would that 7 plus
whatever they get for football
from the Pac-12, where does that stack up? Memphis made $11 million as a full member of the American Athletic Conference last year. So I don't know if even that would end up beating where they are right now, which is just being one of the powerhouses of that conference in both revenue sports.
Mm-hmm.
The other Memphis piece in the report was that they are really set on trying to make a power conference.
Yep.
I believe the phrase in the writing was get to the other side of the river.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably where you're also thinking in the back of your mind about what really might happen in terms of teams that, like, what really might happen in the ACC. Yeah. Would you be at the front of that line, and would you then would you jeopardize any potential ACC movement by trying to create this hybrid Big East Pac-12 type lifestyle? Should be something to keep an eye on. Is Memphis in your eyes the sort of the biggest chip that's out there that's not currently aligned with the Power Conference?
I definitely don't think it's lower than top 3. I mean, Notre Dame is not aligned with the Power Conference, Chip. So
no, they are. They're in the NDC, Notre Dame Conference.
Okay. So if we exclude Notre Dame from the list, I still think that, I mean, there are so many different factors that would go into it, but I definitely think they're top 3. I mean, as far as just program buy-in, as far as trying to, spend money and also having money to spend.
Last piece of the dominoes here would be what happens in the Sun Belt. And you know how the food chain goes, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
When they get picked, when the AAC or
we have promotion relegation in college football.
Yeah, when the AAC or the Sun Belt get picked off, then they go to CUSA, and when CUSA gets picked off, they go to FCS.
CUSA is a G5 feeder league, pretty much.
And the schools that were mentioned are the only schools that are left from our old CUSA.
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky are some of the schools that were left behind the last time that when the American Athletic Conference came and hoovered up a bunch of CUSA teams. Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky, the first ones mentioned as Sun Belt leaders, might be working to try to figure out who would be the replacement for Texas State. And then CUSA's got its work done just in case it needs to replace teams like Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky. Tarleton State.
Yep. Yeah, it's all ready to go. But I do think, like Pete wrote, Louisiana Tech would likely be the favorite just because of the way the Sun Belt does things, where they want regional rivalries, and Louisiana Tech would fit right into the West, and then you've already got ULM, Louisiana,
even schools. Southern Miss at that point.
Even Southern Miss, yeah. So it's just, I think Louisiana Tech would probably be the replacement, and it does make sense. Like, say what you want about the Sun Belt, I do think it's a good league. I've argued that things have changed a lot as far as the football landscape and the way the sport works. So I used to argue that would be the best G5 league in a few years. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore, just because of the way the money has changed things.
Mm-hmm.
But just as far as being a good league, if you're a fan, or just to watch, even if you're not a fan of one of the schools, they actually seem to approach realignment from the perspective that at least I would kind of hope college football typically did. Instead of just chasing the dollars, they're trying to chase like rivalries and regionality and all that kind of stuff.
They are not dealing with programs that they are not dealing with programs that are trying to put a TV ratings formula into your payouts.
Correct. They want schools that care about the sports and will care about playing each other.
Like, they still care about selling season tickets.
Mm-hmm.
They still care about trying to create those environments. I've got my little window into the modern Sun Belt football through Boone, North Carolina. Like, they want the Rock to be fun, and so that's why they try to make sure that you still have those games against Georgia Southern. You still have those games. James Madison now becoming a little bit more of a regular rivalry. So yeah, old SoCon teams, old FCS playoff rivalries, all of that is still being held together, even if it's not the biggest metro areas, even if they're not the biggest TV draws. So I'm with you right there. I really, really enjoy Sun Belt football, but to be like a cold shower with this, we print out the Sun Belt all conference team every single offseason, and every single one of those players gets plugged.
Yeah, I know. It's a good football league.
It's a good, Players.
Same happens to the MAC. Same thing happens.
Players come in overlooked, under recruited. They've got good coaches. They play well, and they are gone. So
yes, like I love the MAC, but the Sun Belt is kind of, for me, just kind of creeping up past the MAC as far as my enjoyment for watching factor.
Absolutely. All right. Coming up on the other side, we turn our attention to the Heisman Trophy outlook for the 2025 season. It ain't all quarterbacks up at the top, just like it used to be. What does the top of the odds board look like? We'll break down contenders by tiers and so much more next.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale.
on the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. Yeah, I like the way that I like the way Garrett put it. It's just a ball playing league.
Mm-hmm.
No divas in the Sun Belt.
I just said it in the chat. The Sun Belt is what the SEC was before the SEC sold out.
Ooh, yeah. Don't just say that in the chat. Let's put that on record.
And I don't blame the SEC for selling out. It just happens. But I'm saying, as far as the tradition and what they cared about, the Sun Belt still kind of holds those things close to the vest, whereas the SEC is just chasing dollars now, like everybody else, except for the Sun Belt.
All right. One thing that came through in the big old bag of mail was a question about, Heisman long shots. And I said, I appreciate your question, but I think this is a topic that deserves a little bit more than just talking about long shots. It deserves the opportunity to sort of set the pieces in motion, because whether we love it or not, it is a Heisman race. It is very much like something out of politics, where you've got your different contenders and all of a sudden you can surge up in popularity and then fall back. And that's because ultimately it is a popularity contest with several hundred voters, of varying levels of interest and involvement in college football.
So they're getting better at that involvement and interest part.
Getting their attention, holding their attention. All of these things are very much soft factors that we have in terms of determining the Heisman Trophy. But at the beginning of the season, it's a great chance to sort of see who the stars are going to be in the sport. One thing that I mentioned, I believe, earlier in the offseason, last year, you had to go all the way down to Travis Hunter at 65-1 to find a non-quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That most of the top 30 names on the list were all quarterbacks, and sometimes two schools had multiple quarterbacks. That's not the case this year. Thank you to Jeremiah Smith. Thank you to Jeremiah Love. Thank you to Ryan Williams. We do have some non-quarterbacks that are up at the top of the board. And let's start right there at the top of the board, thanks to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more. If you're watching on youtube.com/cover3, you see it is Arch Manning at 7-1, followed closely by Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik. Then we take a little bit of a drop to Jeremiah Smith at 13-1, Drew Aller at 14, Julian Sayin at 15, DJ Lagway at 18, then John Mateer and Lenore Sellers at 19, Dante Moore at 20-1. So very quickly there at the very top, as we're looking at everybody 20-1 or shorter. And for those, we're going to get to it in a little bit. Then we get a huge drop to 33. Like, this is the top tier, and there are even tiers within this top tier. What stands out to you first glance at those names at the top of the board?
That the favorite has never been a full-time starter. That the Julian Sayin is in the top 10. He's never been a full-time starter. Dante Moore was a full-time starter for half a season at UCLA before he got benched. That's just, I think it goes to show you that there really isn't a consensus guy. Like, Arch Manning is getting it because of the name right now, and because
100%
I think he will be. But my question for you is, we're looking at that top 10. What would you set the odds at that not a single name on that top 10 wins the Heisman Trophy? Like, if I gave you those 10 or the field, who would you take?
This year?
Yeah.
This year, I think I might take those 10. So here's the way that I approach this. When Caleb Williams won it, he was not the favorite, but he was in this range on this list.
Correct.
When Jaden Daniels won it, he was not the favorite, but he was in this range. He was on this list. Travis Hunter, as I mentioned, was not. But I do think that while, like, Joe Burrow came from way far off the board,
Lamar Jackson came from way far
Lamar
off the
Jackson
board.
came from way far off the board. I think that in very, very recent overreactions, we have seen some of the names, maybe not the favorite, to your point. Arch Manning at 7-1 straight up is a bad bet.
Yes.
Like, that's just not a wager that I would recommend to anybody. There are low yield savings accounts I can point you to that would be a better use of your $100 than Arch Manning at 7-1. But I think you've got some other ones that could really hit and different paths to victory where you don't need to be a national champion or a national championship contender to still win the Heisman Trophy. What would you say? Would you go Field?
I mean, it depends on the odds, but I look at that list and I'm just saying, like, Jeremiah Smith is a wide receiver. I know Devontae Smith won it, but he's a wide receiver on Ohio State. So, like, odds are he won't have ridiculous kind of numbers. And he's also going to have to compete with the quarterback, who's also in that top 10. And we see how that usually goes. So I think it's going to be difficult for Jeremiah Smith to win, particularly at those numbers. Arch Manning, we've never seen. John Mateer is not going to win the Heisman Trophy. I'm sorry. If you take 1,900 on John Mateer, you just send me the $100. I'll at least maybe send you $5 back.
Is your tip jar still open on
My
Twitter?
tip jar is still open on X. So just send me the $100. You have the same amount of chance to get money back from me. Lenore Sellers, I very much doubt he can win the Heisman because I just don't think South Carolina is going to be good enough for a South Carolina quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy. Dante Moore, you look at Oregon's offense, he probably could put up numbers to win it. So I look at that top 10, and I feel like Arch, Garrett, Klubnik, and maybe Lagway, if he turns out to be everything that everybody thought he was coming out of high school, are the only realistic names, I think, on that list to win the trophy. I think I would lean towards the Field.
Okay. I will I will say that the intrigue of Moore is worth tracking, worth trying to see it, worth considering when you're trying to look at the top of the list. I'm with you on Lagway. Like, if he's healthy, then yes. DJ Lagway can be the best player in America. So 100% there. John Mateer is very funny, but
there's no way.
I love you jumping on the other side of that right now. There's a Drew Aller path.
No, there isn't.
You don't?
I don't believe in Drew Aller. I'm sorry.
Okay.
When we get the long shots, Drew Aller will come up again.
Because the Heisman Trophy isn't a stiff arm, it's a handoff to a running back in the backfield.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
In the big games, it has been.
Fair. All right. With the within that middle tier, who do you like the best? Is it Lagway?
Yeah, of the guys on that top 10, I would lean Lagway is probably the best value, although I'm not super confident in it because I do think that Lagway could have a fantastic season and Florida could still be 8-4. And now we've seen like Lamar do that. So it's not impossible, but it's just not likely. Like, typically history suggests, like last year we saw a unicorn and the unicorn won. But you usually have to be, in this modern era, a big time player on a big time team who's having a good season. Like, it's going to be hard for guys that are not on playoff teams most years to win the Heisman Trophy, especially now that we're going to be expanding it to 16 teams. So, like, if you're betting on Lagway, you have to be seriously confident that you think Florida can get to the college football playoff and have an exceptional kind of season. And there is correlation because if that happens, it's probably because DJ Lagway has had an incredible season. So I think of those middle guys on that top 10, that's the one I'm most interested in.
Of the top three, Arch, Garrett, Cade, if you've got to pick one and punt one.
Cade. I'm picking Cade because Clemson, I think, has the easiest run as far as being in the ACC. Like, they are your favorite to win that conference. Cade is a veteran. Cade will be putting up numbers for them, and he will be getting plenty of attention because he's, the quarterback at Clemson, and we're all familiar with his name. I think Arch Manning would probably be second just because of the name, and that if Arch Manning has a good season, he's going to get plenty of Heisman love from people, from the casual voters and some of the hardcore voters, depending on how good he plays. I think Nuss of those top three is the bigger long shot, just because I don't think he has the name value of Manning or the team of Cade.
Everyone loves that rope, though.
I love Nuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I was drafting one of them right now, I would draft Nuss.
Right. But it's the playing out winning the Heisman Trophy with a reloaded wide receiver room. You need Chris Hilton to stay healthy. You're replacing 2 NFL-bound offensive tackles. There's a lot that goes into the math there on that one. Tom, taking Cade, punting it. We're getting a lot of comments in the tailgate. We'll get to some of those here in a little bit. As you jump to the next tier, in the odds board. I'm gonna read out a couple names, and then we'll go with let's pick one, punt one. Okay.
Okay.
Carson Beck, Austin Simmons, Ole Miss quarterback, Sam Levitt, CJ Carr.
Punting Sam Levitt. Nothing personal, Sam. Just your Arizona State. Unless the Big 12 is a random number generator. Sorry, it's going to be hard for you to do it 2 years in a row. But if you do, you'll get credit for it. Give me CJ Carr.
I don't think that's
the Notre
crazy.
Dame quarterback. Like if he has a good year,
I'm going to punt Carson Beck. I think that I would bite on Sam Levitt, but I don't hate CJ Carr and Austin Simmons. I can be bullish on what Ole Miss's offense can be with Austin Simmons, but Heisman Trophy is a jump that we have not seen from an Ole Miss quarterback in terms of the conversation in a very long time.
It's kind of counter of what happens with Lincoln Riley in that I feel like Lane Kiffin's quarterback success kind of cheapens it when Ole Miss quarterbacks play well because people just kind of attribute it to the offense. You know what I mean? So it's like if Austin Simmons puts up numbers, it's like, okay, well, so did Jackson Dart, so did whoever. So it kind of cheapens it in the eyes of some voters. So yeah, I think he'd have a more difficult time of those four.
Okay. Ryan Williams, Kevin Jennings, Gunnar Stockton, and Ty Simpson. So we're talking about 2 Alabama players.
Get on out of here, Kevin Jennings. He's got no shot. I'm sorry. He's the SMU quarterback, Chip. And look what he did in the playoff last year. He threw 2 pick sixes against Penn State. You know what kind of season he's going to have to overcome that?
Fair.
That
was fast. Fast.
Get him out.
Sorry, Rhett. I mean, I know Rhett's a big fan of the Cover 3 podcast, and he's been hunting down some social media graphics that don't include Kevin Jennings, and trying to take a real issue with him. So it's all right. Come on the show, Rhett. We'll talk about Kevin Jennings.
Again, disclaimer, if I kick you out of this conversation, it's not because I don't think you're good. It's just because I don't think you're going to win the Heisman. It's a very different discussion we're having. Gunnar Stockton, if he has a tremendous year, maybe because he's the Georgia quarterback, but I also feel like the Georgia quarterback never gets credit for Georgia being good. Like if Georgia's great, we're going to talk about its defense. And Gunnar Stockton being a first one in, last one to leave, just a real game managing kind of guy. So I think out of this four, it becomes a Ryan Williams, Ty Simpson battle, which is interesting because one can't do anything without the other. And I think, again, it's going back to what I was saying with Jeremiah Smith. It's very difficult for receivers to win because if receivers have exceptional years, their quarterbacks tend to have exceptional years. So I think Ryan Williams has enough name value. He's on the cover of the video game to get more votes. But I still think Ty Simpson would be the better bet if I'm betting one of those two from a Alabama offense.
And at FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can make every moment more, all 4 of those names, Williams, Jennings, Stockton, and Simpson, are all at 40-1. All right, let's play this with one more group, and then we'll hit a break, take some tailgate questions, and start to get to Tom's list of long shots. This next group, Miller Moss, remember, is at Louisville. Devin Dampier, who is now at Utah. Joey Aguilar, who is now at Tennessee. And then let's throw in Marcel Reed and Fernando Mendoza. Marcel Reed, of course, Texas A&M. Fernando Mendoza, Indiana.
I'm punting them all, bro.
Punt them all.
I'm punting them all. Like Miller Moss, okay, he might have a good year for Louisville. But again, whatever. Jeff Brom, quarterback. Devin Dampier, I absolutely adore, but he's not a Heisman kind of quarterback. He's a fun quarterback that can make crazy things happen for you, and he could help lead Utah to a conference title and the college football playoff, but I don't think that's going to be enough for Devin Dampier to win the Heisman. Joey Aguilar? You think people are going to look at anything Joey Aguilar does in that offense as an upgrade? I don't. And then Marcel Reed, maybe he has a giant kind of season just based on the kind of offense that A&M will run, where he's a true dual threat. He racks up a bunch of touchdowns to get in the conversation. Like Heisman finalist, I can see it. Heisman winner, no. And Fernando Mendoza, I understand it. I get it. But I personally have not reached a place in my life where I can look at Indiana football and just feel like, without a doubt, that they're still going to be good. To me, it's one of those programs where it's like, I need to see it happen for a couple of years in a row before I fully buy in. And I just, no.
This is a portion of the breakdown in the market where I would just blow right past it. Like I would rather have a couple names up here at the top, and then I'd have a couple of names that are a little bit further down. I think I saw a response in the tailgate, just like you. And none of them. No, it's just way too middle of the pie. Not enough payout to be able to take a true scratch off ticket on it, but at least not enough proven to be able to say that they're going to be there.
Yeah, this is the part of the board where instead of taking these guys at these odds, I would rather go further down the board and take the longer shots because I think there are just a lot better value plays down there.
There is one name that is like on fire right now in the tailgate. Curious to see if he ends up making your list of long shots. He's definitely worth
him already.
He's definitely worth discussing. So coming up on the other side, your long shot bets for the Heisman Trophy in 2025. These guys have a ton of value that might not be realized in the market. Let's take advantage. All that and more next.
Get ready.
Wait a second. I thought we were going tubing.
All 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and Knuckles are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
And everyone loves it.
Every adventure.
Just try to keep up.
Every face-off.
This ends now.
And every moment that will have you saying,
Where have you been? My entire life!
It's showtime!
All 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies and the entire Sonic universe are now streaming on Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast as we continue to roll through the Heisman Trophy outlook for the season ahead. Tom, you said that you had already started to sniff around and do your research, and you were even motivated. You were so motivated by what you saw in terms of this value that maybe even some action taken. So what did you see a little bit further down the list? Let's get into some names.
Well, this one actually isn't further down the list. Is the same odds of the guys of Marcel Reed, who I think was the last name in our foursome, or was it Mendoza, who was 50? Mendoza and Reed are 50-1. It's a name right below them, Chip. It's also 50-1. Yeah, it'll be shocking to people who listen to this podcast, but give me Jeremiah Love at 50-1. We talked about CJ Carr not too long ago being the Notre Dame quarterback at 33-1 being intriguing. I think Jeremiah Love kind of has that Reggie Bush kind of excitement factor going, where he's not going to be the workhorse in that Notre Dame offense, so that will hurt him. But right. Reggie Bush wasn't the workhorse in the USC offense, too. They also had Lendale White on those teams, and that didn't stop Reggie Bush from winning the Heisman because he had all the spectacular highlight plays on a very good team. I think Notre Dame will once again be shocking a very good team, a team that will be getting to the playoff and will be competing for a national title. And I think Love could be the guy on that offense that is the true superstar that moves the needle, that garners attention and gets everybody going. So I love Jeremiah Love, and I love Jeremiah Love for Heisman at 50-1.
I appreciate that you are back there for your guy who you said you would have taken ahead of Ashton Jeanty if he was in the NFL draft. You have declared your adoration for Jeremiah Love for a long time. And I will say that 2 things would pause. I'd rather take, it's not a bet, I'd rather take him as an All-American. I'd rather take him as a Doak Walker Award winner.
Mm-hmm.
I do think I think the depth of the running back room could end up being a soft factor that hurts him. I think that Notre Dame might also just blow out a lot of players, a lot of teams this year. And maybe they don't put as much on him because they're expecting a 16-game type season. And he was a little bit banged up and always playing through it at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to allege total load management, but in the conversation of Jeremiah Love as the best running back in the country, oh man, I love that. Like everything we have seen from him, what they're going to have back, even after losing guys to the NFL on the offensive line, they still have real depth and real skill and talent along the line of scrimmage. I think that he will be one of the best running backs in the entire country, if not the best running back in the entire country. But load management / injury history, And paired with that, the depth of that running back room would be the only pieces that I'd push back in terms of Heisman Trophy winner.
All totally fair, but I will argue that I think we put too much emphasis on this team might blow people out, because LSU was blowing people out, didn't stop Joe Burrow from winning the Heisman, didn't stop Jaden Daniels from winning the Heisman. And I think that if they are blowing people out, do you know who probably scored the touchdowns to put them up 3 or 4 scores?
Oh, yeah.
Jeremiah Love.
You're right about the highlight reel stuff, too.
Mm-hmm.
The Reggie Bush, Lindale White call is a great piece for us to hold up, 20 years after the fact, because if Jeremiah Love is doing some of that, like reaching across the goal line, insane spin moves, jumps, the things that he can do thanks to his athletic gifts, that'd be a good one right there. Who else is on your deep cut list?
All right. This next one is another long shot who you could get. He's, you know what? I love and respect and appreciate FanDuel for helping us make every single moment more on this podcast. So I won't name another sports book.
But there's another site.
I also love our listeners more than I love FanDuel. So for their sake, I want to point out that at a different sports book, you can find USC quarterback Jaden Maeva at 70 to 1. And the thought process here is pretty simple. I don't think it's going to happen. But Lincoln Riley tends to do well with quarterbacks. Lincoln Riley has a history of winning the Heisman with quarterbacks. USC has a history of its quarterbacks winning the Heisman. If somehow it does click and USC is quote unquote back and USC is competing at the top of the Big Ten, odds are Jaden Maeva will be a big part of why they're doing it, and he will be putting up very impressive numbers. So I do believe getting him at 70 to 1 right now provides interesting value. I do not expect it to cash, but if it does, you'll feel pretty happy about it.
I think I would rather have Jaden Maeva than Miller Moss.
Oh, God, yeah.
Even if they were the same price.
Louisville QB, yeah, clearly.
Yeah. Like even if you had taken Miller from 40 to 1 or 45 to 1 all the way out to 60 to 1 or 70 to 1, I think I would rather have Jaden Maeva.
For sure.
Also, that would go in line with my bold prediction of USC making the college football playoff. So, do I do this like every year, or is it more of an every other year? Am I on a Ryder Cup
fall
rotation?
for USC every damn year.
No, is it? I think I'm a Ryder Cup rotation. Fall for in Ryder Cup years.
In America years, right?
I fall for USC as the one where I'm going to be the one that's out here.
You've got
making the brave call.
You've got a 12-month memory. It's like you'll pick USC, and then the next summer you'll be like, "Nah, they screwed me last year. I'm leaving USC alone." But then that memory fades, and then the summer after that, you're like, "You know who could be good? USC."
USC could be right back in this thing before you know it. All right, out west. I'll throw this one at you because I got to know if it's on it. There's too much buzz right now. All throughout the tailgate, we've got a lot of DeMond Williams talk.
And I have a piece of DeMond Williams.
Yes. All right.
And again, this is not at FanDuel. It's at a different sports book, but you can find DeMond Williams for 150 to 1. And again, this is not, when you get to these long shots, you're not betting them because you think they are going to win. You're just saying this guy could win, and these odds are really, really big. And DeMond Williams was very impressive to me last year. Like, he didn't start until the bowl game, but he was playing all season long. Like, he was getting little, like series and little packages put in there for him. They were breaking him in. And as I was watching Washington last year, I was thinking, just bench Will Rogers and play this kid, because he was better to me than Will Rogers already was. Like, Will Rogers was the more veteran, steady presence. But after a while, when it was clear Washington wasn't going to be competing for anything seriously, I would have put in DeMond Williams. But more than impressive than just what he did as far as being a good quarterback and kind of an electric runner, he took care of the football, which is the one thing when you see like freshmen coming in, they really do a terrible job of. He only threw 1 interception. So I look at him, I look at Washington as a team that could be improved this year. I don't think they will be improved enough to garner enough Heisman attention for Williams. It might set him up as a Heisman guy for 2026 more than anything, But if Washington takes a surprising leap forward and is maybe that fourth best team in the Big Ten competing for a playoff spot, which is not entirely insane considering what happens after the top three, there's a lot of wiggle room in that league. It'll be because of DeMond Williams, and you're getting him at 151.
DeMond Williams, for those who are not familiar, was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. I believe he was targeted by Kalen DeBoer and the rest of Ryan Grubb, the rest of that Washington staff before they went to Alabama. There was some question of whether he would stick to his commitment. He came in time to do spring ball with Jed Fish and the Huskies. And as you mentioned, very much has gotten the messaging either explicitly or implicitly. We are going to spend this season getting you ready to be the full-time starter for 25. He participated in it. As you mentioned, he is not overwhelming physically. No. In this era where so many of our quarterbacks are 6'4", 210, and all toolsy, all get out. He's to me, and tell me if this is unfair, he's a little bit more gamer than overwhelming. Like I don't know if gamer is the right what's the right way to describe the way that DeMond Williams plays the game, because he's smart, takes care of the football, looks good.
He's 5'11". He's 5'11", 190 pounds. He's not a thick kid. He's a smaller kid. He is the type of Kyler Murray. He's tall. He's as tall as he's Kyler Murray. He's a Kyler Murray-ish-esque player in the things he can do, in that he is very electric with his legs, but he's also pretty good with his arm. And that's the thing. You see a lot of these guys at his size who are great runners, who you're sitting there saying, if he can develop as a passer, he could be special. This kid already is a pretty good passer, particularly at his size. Now, there's some kind of things you have to do to help him succeed as a passer because of his size, but it's there. Like when the lane is there and he could see it, he can make the throw. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of ceiling for DeMond Williams.
Yeah,
at the college level.
Yeah, at the college, he could be a great college quarterback, and Washington is certainly hoping that. Raymond throwing out Julian Sayin size. Yeah, that is big. It's a knock on Julian Sayin. That you are dealing with someone. Julian Sayin had a higher prospect rating and evaluation coming out of high school, but these are going to be anyone who's under 6 feet. You're going to get a little bit of criticism and a little bit of questions along the way. Who else do you have on your long shot list?
The longest shot that I have put in a ticket on, going back to what we mentioned earlier, Chip, if Penn State lives up to the hope, wins the Big Ten, gets to the playoff, is competing for a national title, do you think it's because Drew Aller finally figured out how to play against good defenses? Or do you think it's because they have two very good running backs, one of whom, actually they're both at the same odds, but I took the big play guy, Nick Singleton, at 300-1. He's one of the best running backs in the country, and he's 300-1.
This is an incomplete list who have the same odds as Nick Singleton. Prepare yourselves. Billy Edwards, Zach Calzada, Maddox Madsen.
Yup.
What in the world?
TJ Finley, Noah Fafita,
Tavian St. Clair isn't even the starter.
Do you know who has better odds than Nick Singleton? Brendan Sorsby,
Connor Wegman,
Rocco Becht, Mikey Keene, who might not even be the starter at Michigan. You can get Nick Singleton at 300-1. If Nick Singleton, like, again, he's sharing the low with Katron Allen, and that hurts. But it's also possible this is an Andy Kotelnicki offense. They're going to run the ball very well, and there's going to be a lot of big explosive runs. Katron Allen is more, he's just as capable of getting the big runs, but Singleton is kind of the bang highlight guy. Also, you could just also throw one on Katron Allen too, and then what happens if one of them gets hurt, and then the other one becomes the full-time back, and he just puts up monster numbers, and he finishes with like 1,800 yards rushing and 25 touchdowns.
$3 on Singleton, $3 on Allen. One of them's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
I'm just saying. 300-1 on Nick Singleton, one of the best backs in the country.
That's incredible.
Mhm.
A few other names for long shots that stood out to me. The TCU quarterback winning is you have to put up crazy stats to be able to do it. I think Josh Hoover could do 250 to 1. I think Josh Hoover could put up crazy stats and put together one of those types of arguments. You know, when RG3 won the Heisman Trophy, I think that was 11. Then it was followed by Manziel in 12. You know, those were the, like, you were just overwhelmed by the offensive production at the quarterback position. It was just, you were winning on stats. You know, when Mariota won in 14, it was excellence. Oregon was a national title contender that season, but it was also just this statistical excellence that made him one of the biggest runaway winners in Heisman Trophy history. You can, without being at one of the like bluest of the blue bloods, you can put together the statistical argument. Josh Hoover, of those quarterbacks down there in that range, was one that definitely jumped out to me.
I don't think it's a terrible call, but I will point out Max Duggan put up those kind of numbers at TCU in 2022, the year that TCU actually reached the title game, and Duggan still finished. He finished in second place, but
I was going to say he was still a finalist.
It was a very large gap between him and Caleb Williams.
But if you've got the ticket and he's a finalist,
You can cash out.
yeah, you've got enough. You've done enough to at least justify whatever the
So,
investment.
like you're saying, is what if you've got Jaden Maeva at 70 to 1 and Max Duggan at 250 to, or Josh Hoover 250 to 1, and it's like, oh yeah,
That's when they're
and then
going.
Nick Singleton wins at 300 to 1.
No comments. I'm sure that those who are listening and watching at home, if they haven't commented already, nothing for Luke Altmaier.
He's what, 200 to 1?
I'm looking at him at 400 to 1 at FanDuel Sportsbook.
400 to 1. I don't think Luke's going to have the numbers as far as passing goes. Like, I think that he will be, if Illinois is as good as it was last year, I think it's going to be a lot like it was last year, where he plays well, but he's not dropping back to throw 30 to 40 times per game. It's 20 to 30, and he's going to have solid numbers, but it's going to be a heavier running approach. So I can't do it legally because I live in the state of Illinois, so I'm not allowed to bet on anything related to their, program. Thanks, Josh. But, I would throw it on there as a sign of solidarity with my guy, but I don't think it's a realistic looking one, though.
Any other names that, a couple more that stood out to me. We were talking about, we went to break after booting our group of Miller Moss, Devin Dampier, Joey Aguilar, Marcel Reed, and just below them was a couple more interesting ones. We already talked about DeMond Williams. Haynes King is probably not going to win.
No.
But man, you let Haynes King have 12 healthy games, he could get frisky. Could get frisky in there.
Fun fact. I'm working on my own kind of QBR stat for college quarterbacks that doesn't just take into account passing, but also includes their rushing production.
Yeah.
And of all the quarterbacks returning from last year, Haynes King has the highest score in that rating. So he's going to have numbers. He's a very good college quarterback who's a very good fit in what they do in that offense. But yeah, it would be pretty difficult for him to win the Heisman Trophy.
And what the numbers don't tell you is that he was like dragging broken bones to get those first downs on those run plays.
Yes.
The Haynes King, one of my favorite players in college football. Just that guy leaves it out there. A Jake in the Jake Haener mold. Of just leaving it out there on the field. Then one more here. It would be quite a story. And he's kind of a villain, so I don't know what it would take to be able to curry favor from the Heisman voters. But I don't think UCLA has to win 11 games for Nico Iamaleava to necessarily be a factor in the Heisman Trophy race.
I don't think Nico can win. I think that there will be too many people who are kind of like you said, he's a villain for what he did.
Yeah.
I think there are still a decent portion of the voting body who will view what Nico did as a disqualifier for him to win the Heisman. Not a large portion, but enough of a portion that it would hurt his chances to win significantly, who just won't put him on the ballot at all. And that would help keep him from getting points to win.
Never mind. No need to open this up at minute 55, but we have a Heisman Trophy winner in the last 15 years who is facing very serious allegations and investigations a mere weeks before claiming the stiff arm trophy.
I'm just saying there's a certain back, like, in an odd way, I think people would view being paid under the table as more acceptable than the player just backing out and demanding more money. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
breaking NCAA rules is fine because the rules were bad, more than a player taking that kind of approach to it, where it's more of a professional kind of thing.
Oh, I was talking about 2013.
Oh,
That the Florida State's Attorney's
no,
Office.
nobody's ever cared about that when it comes to football shit.
All right.
Let's
Okay.
be real. Or did he? Yeah, okay, but did he win football games?
But at like an NCAA record of point margin,
Yeah.
2013 team was just blasting everybody into oblivion. Let's see. There's his name is Diego Pavia. Our friends in the tailgate who are asking, let's see, where is the Pavia Mafia? He is
Pavia
at
was
150 to 1.
yeah. Don't see it.
Yeah.
It's the Vandy quarterback. Just what kind of year would Vandy have to have for its quarterback to win the Heisman?
I mean, it honestly could have been last year if they didn't lose to Georgia State and, stumble just a little bit. If they had been able to continue soaring up this way, wasn't he hurt for a little bit too?
I think Diego Pavia is always hurt. He just doesn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I think he's just he wakes up sore. He goes to bed sore. He's just sore all damn day, but he
That's
doesn't
because
mention
he's
it.
33.
I know he's an old man. He just puts his head down and he goes to work, gets his lunch pail.
He's ready to go.
A lot of people are mentioning Bryce Underwood. He is 60 to 1 at FanDuel. I'm not saying he can't win it. I don't like it at 60 to 1. I think there are better values down the board because you're asking for a lot from a true freshman quarterback.
I just think too that Michigan is looking at the Bryce Underwood experience like this is year one.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a plan to be able to have his last year at Michigan or maybe last 2 years at Michigan be the ones where they're trying to go chase a national championship. There are bigger goals in place with the investment that's been made in Bryce Underwood than getting him a Heisman Trophy right away.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I would say so. All right. This has actually been a really good conversation to set the tone for the week because coming up on Wednesday, we are going to be talking about the dark horse team. So if you might have seen, if like me, you read Tom's work or if you read my work a little bit later on today, we have been writing a lot about some teams to be able to watch for, some value bets, some long shots. And so we're going to pull all that research together. We're going to put together our list of dark horse teams for the 2025 season. That will be dark horses to make the playoff, to win the title, to win a conference. So lots of different levels, lots of different buckets. It is Dark Horse Day on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Come hang out at youtube.com/cover3. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.